Hey, everybody, you're listening to and watching the Comic Book Bears podcast. I'm Bill Zanowitz.
I'm Brian Pittard.
And I'm Steve Morey.
And we are your hairy, heavy homos that talk about comic books, but you don't have to be a hairy, heavy homo to listen in, or in this case, tune in. And for this show, we have a very special guest. Please welcome to the show, Michael Hartney.
Hi, everybody.
Oh, boy, I am like, no one's clapping. Okay. All right. Michael is an actor, writer, and comedian in New York City. He created the roles of Stanley and Mr. Williams in the original Broadway production of School of Rock. His TV appearances include The Politician, 30 Rock, The Break with Michelle Wolf, and Throwing Shade, where Michael also served as a staff writer. He was the artistic director of the Upright Citizens Brigade Theater, New York. He also has an excellent web series that he can talk to you about called Characters Welcome. So again, Michael, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thanks so much for having me, you guys. I'm very excited to be here.
And apart from the credits, which we talked about, and we'll get into that with you very soon, you're also a big comic book fan. And you're wearing it.
I'm wearing it. I'm wearing a specifically a Christopher Reeve iteration of the S-Shield t-shirt. I also have a George Reeves one. Yeah, pandemic has been really fruitful for me. I've been just mostly ordering t-shirts.
Well, then why don't we go right into it then? Michael, how did you first get into comic books?
So I was I was a child, I think in the middle of my terrible twos, and my parents had truly no idea what to do with me in a way where they could get anything done. And after trying a million things, they plopped me down in front of, I think, like a network airing of Superman the movie. And for, I think, 3 hours or whatever that like mega cut is, I shut up for the very first time. And so my parents knew that they had like a thing to occupy me. And so they started buying me Superman comic books. It's how I taught myself how to read. And it has been a problem ever since.
Okay. And in terms of comics, what are some of your particular favorites? I know we'll take a deeper dive a little later, but just on the surface, what are some of your big faves?
I'm a DC guy. I am a DC guy. I like Superman, obviously. I am a weird, like, late convert to reading Batman comics. I didn't really read Batman comics until Scott Snyder started writing Batman, like the New 52. So I've been kind of getting into Batman. I like Teen Titans. I was 12 when Image came out, so for a while there I was like an Image freak. And I still read Savage Dragon, even though right now it is insane.
You're like the first person, I think, or well, maybe the second person that we've talked to who actually still reads Savage Dragon.
I still do. It's so crazy right now. Do you have any idea what it's like right now? It's bananas.
Well, where is it? It's with his son right now, and he went to Canada.
So it's Malcolm Dragon. He lives in Toronto. All of that stuff is fairly normal. What is totally weird is there are like full vaginas. Like his wife is a nympho. There's so much ejaculant shown. It's insane. It's become like an adults only book in a very bizarre. He's going through something right now, I think.
Who, as in Eric?
Eric Larson is going through something right now. Okay. Maybe his son, maybe he has like an empty nest thing. I don't know what's happening. It's the book has turned a very odd corner, and I don't know. I still like his art a bunch, so I've still been reading it.
I wonder if it's more of just sort of like he's just trying to see who's still reading the book. So he's just sort of like, how crazy can I make this before somebody actually says something?
Yeah.
And then sends like the publisher a letter. It's like, I've been reading this book. And
Real uptick in exposed vaginas lately. Care to comment? That's really strange.
wow.
All right,
That's
funny man. So, why don't you give us the Reader's Digest version of how you got into entertainment and some very impressive credits there.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Well, I from being a kid, like just always kind of wanted attention and wanted the spotlight. I started watching SNL way too young, I'm sure, and pretty much from the first episode I saw, I was like, "Oh, this, please! I would like to do this. I would like to be involved with this program in some way." So I did a lot of theater in school. I majored in acting, like a real artist, like a real future planner, and then I moved to New York. I was going to move to Chicago and do Second City stuff, and then last minute I moved to New York to take. I was in the 1-year program of the American Comedy Institute, which seemed like a real, I don't know, fast track to me. It didn't end up being a fast track, but it was a nice year of like structure and learning in a time that could have been crazy, like moving to New York. A young man's mind gets blown. So I started getting involved in the UCB theater, doing a lot of sketch comedy, and from there I started working with an agent and booking commercials, and eventually got cast on 30 Rock, which was cool for a few lines. Yeah, so and then one day my manager was like, "Hey, they're looking for people for this School of Rock musical. Would you be interested in that at all?" And the answer was yes. So, and I hadn't auditioned for a musical in, I don't know, since college at that point. So it had been a while, like 15 years. So I kind of showed up to this casting room, very green, very rusty, was super nervous. And all I had was a songbook from Pippin, which was a musical I did in high school, which was, I mean, it's a book full of overdone songs that no self-respecting musical theater actor would audition with, but baby, it's all I had. And it worked out. It somehow worked out. So I I kept improbably getting called back, and finally I got cast in the workshop that would later become the Broadway production of School of Rock, where I understudied the lead role of Dewey, and got to play a bunch of fun characters in the ensemble. So that was really fun, and that lasted up until the election of 2016, where, what a cool, fun time. I got hired to write on this show on TV Land called Throwing Shade, which I think, let me just check my notes. 8 people watched. Thank you so much, you 8.
I was one of them.
Oh, that's amazing!
I was
Wow,
one of those 8.
That's incredible.
I loved it.
Whoa, cool.
I still listen to Bryan and
Aaron, yeah,
and Aaron.
they're great. They're great.
Attitudes now.
Attitudes. I think that's a really smart move.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then when I moved back to New York, because Throwing Shade was in LA, I was teaching at UCB for a while and coaching improv and sketch teams and stuff, and finally the artistic director was leaving. And so I applied for that job. And that's what I did for 18 months until the world exploded.
Now, with UCB, you were always at the Hell's Kitchen location?
Well, we were at Chelsea. For a while, at just at Chelsea. And then I think in 2011 or maybe 2012, they opened an East Village location. So
Yeah.
for a while we were in Chelsea and East Village. Then they closed Chelsea and we moved to Hell's Kitchen. So then it was Hell's Kitchen in East Village. And then huge financial problems happened. We closed the East Village. We're only in Hell's Kitchen. And now zero buildings.
Yeah. Well, let's hope that's a temporary situation. Seriously.
Thanks, COVID.
Thanks, COVID.
Because as somebody who cannot do improv for beans, I love going. And apart from an Amsterdam group in the 90s, Boom Chicago, I have to say that some of my nights at UCB on 23rd Street were some of the most fun nights I ever had seeing live performances.
Right?
Yeah.
So fun. Yeah, I miss it.
All right.
We'll be back someday.
Yeah. All right. Just so I'm not bogarting the entire interview, I'm going to take the interview baton, hand it over to Steve. Steve, what do you got for Michael?
Nothing.
Cool. I can handle that.
No,
Funny joke.
I'm a huge fan of improv and sketch comedy. I do not do any of that, so it just fills me with joy to watch other people.
Sometimes that's the best way, is to simply be a fan and not.
Yes.
When you concern yourself with the minutia and the craft of it, it actually is.
It's work.
Sucks the joy out of you.
But I've also been a big fan of the YouTube channel with Characters Welcome. So I've been watching a lot of the different sketches that have been coming up for the past couple of years, actually.
Cool.
On watching everybody come up with the characters that they're coming up with and the different sketches, and it's a lot of fun. I love doing that. And did you find, like, when you got into New York and when you finished with your year at the Comedy Institute, was that something that you had gravitated to, that improv, that kind of sketch comedy thing, from there? Or have you always just kind of, I know you mentioned SNL as a young kid. Is that just something you've always been like, is there a way that I can get in and do that?
Yeah. So I think, I'm from Buffalo, New York, and there wasn't a ton of comedy in Buffalo at the time. And so, but there was a lot of theater. And I think the thing that all of my heroes have in common is not only are they hilarious people, but they're also great actors. And so I used being in Buffalo as an opportunity to work on that part of it and to learn the craft of acting, knowing that once I moved to a bigger city, one of the big three, that I would pivot to really honing my comedy chops, just because that's truly always had been the goal. And so with Characters Welcome, I co-created Characters Welcome with a comedian named Justin Tyler. And the way it came about is that Justin had just been asked to showcase for what I think ended up being the final season of Mad TV in like a live showcase at UCB. And he realized, like, oh, I'm going to have to write a bunch of characters. Like, I'm going to have to write so much crap and hope it's good because I have 5 days notice. And so we were like, what if, and hear me out, what if we prepared in advance of that and just constantly started workshopping these sketch characters so that when the time came for Mad TV to come calling or SNL to come calling, that we had a breadth of stuff that we had developed and liked to pull from. And so Characters Welcome just started with me and him wanting feedback on our characters. And so we invited other people in the community to come workshop their characters, and we just would give each other notes. And it didn't take long for it to feel like, oh, this is really cool. This is going to amount to something. Like, people are going to get work out of the work they've done here. and eventually became a house team at the UCB Theater. And in the past year, the YouTube channel has gone from, I think, 70 subscribers to like 120,000 subscribers.
Yep.
Which is insane. And we have no idea how to capitalize on that. No idea what we're doing. Other than just make funny stuff and hope people like it.
You do a characters welcome OnlyFans. Maybe that'll, I don't know.
I mean,
hey,
truly, I'm looking for any revenue stream. Fine, that's fine. If there's an audience.
I think that I really dig the format. I really love the way that you guys spotlight a lot of these really interesting characters. I mean, there's not a lot right now on TV. There isn't a lot of shows that can give that kind of platform. I mean, you have SNL. SNL's just kind of always there, but there's not a lot of the regional shows anymore, like there was in the 90s. Like there were just tons of things.
Yeah.
You had the Northwest. You had oh gosh, what was that? There was a show that was up out of Seattle that was really big for a while.
That like Joel McHale was on, right?
I think so, and so was like Bill Nye. I think I brought him up like a couple weeks ago because high-fiving white guys was one of my favorite sketches from that because it was so stupid. But you had a lot of different formats, and it's not really, with YouTube being out there, I think it gives a lot of opportunity for people to kind of do things on their own. But having a group put it together, you've got the big YouTube channels that really appeal to, the Gen Z's people. But it's nice to see those platforms. It's nice to see that being supported by the wider community. But
yeah, thanks.
So cool. Let's get back to comics because we are a comic book podcast too. So you're a big DC guy, I guess, with your being a big fan of Superman, Teen Titans, etc., and now Batman. Why DC over Marvel or some other things? I mean, Image aside and Savage Dragon.
I think
because of course you are a big Vagina fan now with Savage Dragon, so we'll just talk about that later. But why DC over the other big guys across the street, so to speak?
I think that JLA Avengers crossover from the 90s, late 90s, I think they really kind of hit the nail on the head. The characters kind of articulated that the DC universe was like a more hopeful and idyllic place. And the Marvel universe is, I think, ostensibly meant to mirror our own world a little more. And I'll take the fantasy world. I like the idyllic world.
Yeah.
I like the hope.
Yeah.
Yeah. If I can just interject, I thought that miniseries played on that perfectly. Especially when you have just one little line of dialogue where Hawkeye mentions to Scarlet Witch how much clearer the air is in the DC universe. It's just a nice little bit. And I think up until New 52 in the movies or whatever point, DC were the heroes you would want, and Marvel were the heroes you would get if they actually existed. And but they always use that. Always use that as a negative. And I'm with you, Michael. I always interpreted that as a positive. If none of this stuff is real, if it's not real, you may as well have a much better time and not deal with paranoia.
Yeah, that is also my take, and not to upset anyone who likes Marvel. There's awesome characters in Marvel too, of course. I read some Ultimate stuff. I liked that. There's some good stuff in there.
So it's good. But I agree. Like DC, because I started out as a Marvel guy. Marvel kid. Like I started reading comics when I was like 9 years old, buying stuff at the the comic shop every other week, and it was all like X-Men and Punisher and Spider-Man and whatever. And it's all gritty. was pretty big, and that was the time period when Marvel went all gritty, right before Image popped in. But kind of around that time that Image came out, Marvel, I gravitated towards DC. I started reading more Superman, not so much Batman, but Legion and JLI and Justice League Europe. Just a lot of really, more uplifting, more colorful books. I think that was the big thing. Like there was a lot more. It felt like there was more color in DC books, more storylines that let themselves to less like, let's see what's in the darkness, and more of like, let's get out of the darkness and move on from it. But I don't know, it is interesting. New 52 though kind of did,
oh my god,
grit it up a lot more. And I think there's a frequent contributor, comic book bear as well, who is not a big Scott Snyder fan for I think some of the same reasons. That just kind of.
I mean, I'm a big Court of Owls guy, but he's definitely hit and miss.
It's cool, and I loved his turn on Swamp Thing. I thought it was great. New 52, Scott Snyder. So.
Oh yeah, there was definitely cool stuff there. Yeah. But what they did to Superman. Truly, they should be. They should have to testify before a tribunal.
With hula hoops like this, yeah.
Depowered Superman,
guilty,
like jeans and a black T-shirt. I wouldn't mind running into him, in an alley somewhere.
I mean, the biggest problem was Action and Superman felt like two totally different characters.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Totally.
And even though they're separate points in time, you could still manage that. Despite that mechanism in place, they just weren't able to do it.
Yeah,
that's all gone, so it doesn't matter anymore.
It's all gone.
It's all gone. It never happened, or it did, but it's been erased.
Oh, it all happened. Yeah, we'll find out in a few months.
Everything matters. Every story happened.
It's all.
I'm taking that baton from you, Steve. Going over to Brian. Brian, what do you have for Michael?
So before I get into that, we have comments in the chat. So David Toby, I think back to the Savage Dragon, isn't that weird? It sounds like an ode to the 90s comics in the oddest way. I think lots of vaginas were a thing in the 90s, right? I mean, I remember that. I mean, I just couldn't see them. That was the problem. I can't see vaginas. Peter Lovins, of course, this is a chestnut, right? This is the oldest debate in comics is Marvel versus DC, but you got
we're trailblazers. This is new stuff.
Yeah, nobody's ever talked about
tread
this.
ground.
Our buddy John Runyon, Court of Owls was the jam, but past that I was checked out on. But after Court of Owls, I think it did sort of drop off a bit.
I understand that.
And then
I hung in there with interest. Then when Commissioner Gordon was Bat Chappie, then
I didn't hate Bat Chappie actually. I thought that was a novel twist, but after, it did get weird. And then, of course, speaking of the Living Tribunal, I'd love to see another Marvel DC crossover. I think all of us would. I thought the first round was a hoot. Yeah, I mean, it's a great thing. So I am interested in your comedy, specifically regarding one of the things of our show, which is bears, because I think I first heard about you with your sketch of a Disney Gay Days bear.
God.
And I think that sketch, I shared it with my boyfriend, and that was, I think I found that video not even that long ago, really. I think it was beginning of the pandemic or something. But
oh, wow.
You really lasered in on the things in our culture and how they are heightened at Gay Days. So, being that you are a bear, how have you seen the culture that is bears, bear culture seep into your work, and what ideas have you fed off of, and or things that have stood out to you that had you go there with that sketch and other stuff?
Yeah, that's interesting. I bet I was a single boy a long time ago. So for a long time, I've sort of looked at the community in a outsider adjacent way. And so, when I was 25, like I'd be in those like humorless, hypersexualized places and feel very comfortable. And after a few years of being in a relationship and getting a little older, I look at those hypersexualized, humorless environments, and I think they're very, very, very funny. So, there's a lot of, I've mined it many a time. Weirdly, that character I did, the gay bear, the gay days bear. He was definitely in a sketch that I did, a recurring sketch I did for a long time in my in a indie sketch group I was in. I have a character. The name of the video is No Drama, if you'd like to watch it. Yeah. But that is almost a word-for-word recreation of something I saw at the Eagle in San Francisco. Which you may not be able to tell from the video, but that is fully where I saw that character.
It does. I just watched that earlier too, which is funny. It really lasers in again on like these moments in our collective culture and interactions with each other, and those people that like they don't want drama, but they are 100% the source of most drama.
The drama.
The drama. Yeah, it's. But I mean, I love that you are able to take those things that are very niche about our culture, I guess, and make them accessible, because I've shown that the Gay Days bear sketch, I've shown that to people, admittedly, when I was friends of mine in Orlando. I used to live in Orlando. And they get it. But you found a way to like make it funny and accessible, which I can see a lot of the bear culture being like, the fuck? Like, just not something you can easily explain, and you've boiled it down in such a funny and entertaining way. So I'm thrilled that you do this, because there's so much about bear culture that drives me insane, and I think all of us here we'd all agree, like, it's a lot too serious for its own good most of the time, and it's been so hypersexualized that it can be disgusting, and it's a caricature now of itself. So
yeah, I mean, I'm all for being hypersexualized. Just acknowledge that it's happening and have a sense of humor about it. Like,
yes,
this is actually quite funny what's happening. The disgusting things you're saying are so funny too. And like, just acknowledge it. It's fine. Yeah, I think a big thing in like comedy and sketch writing training is in when you're writing like a parody, you have to hook the people who didn't see the thing you're parodying. And so you have to be super clear about what you're talking about at the top. So people who are part of that community will love it, like on many, many levels. But people who are not part of that community should also be able to enjoy it and take something from it.
It's the lesson of the Snatch game, right?
Exactly.
Like 100 times over, these queens come in and they try to do the most accurate impression they can, but they're not funny and they don't have it be accessible, and then they die. It's, yeah.
Like, you can't just come up with two catchphrases. Come on. Sorry, Steve, what did you say?
No, I just said, like, I thought the lesson was never do RuPaul.
Oh, well, that's the corollary.
So it's fine.
I also note you do some Disney stuff besides just that one sketch. You have, I think, a Disney bus driver sketch, right?
Yeah, I was working on a one-man show for a time that all took place at Disney World. I did not finish it. It did not happen, but I do have a bunch of Disney adjacent characters.
If you ever get back to that and want to have an in at the Fringe Festival in Orlando to do that, let me know. If you don't already have contacts, I will hook you up with all the people you need to know.
Oh, cool.
I think that would kill. And it's not that it's unheard of, obviously, in Orlando Orlando Fringe to have Disney's material, right? But a lot of times it's Disney material from inside Disney, which is sort of its own fun thing. But I think you'd be really good at like bringing that sort of outside perspective. But I mean, I'm guessing you've spent a fair amount of time at Disney World. Like, you must have made that a thing, right?
I have made it a thing. Yeah.
Awesome.
I went a couple times when I was a kid, and always loved it. But the true like psycho fandom began when I like booked a commercial, and like it was a commercial that ran for a while, and so I was like, "Ooh, I have like a little bit of money now. Cool, let's go on vacation. Want to go to Disney?" And we went, and like Disney as an adult is just a different thing than Disney as a kid. And yeah, I definitely caught the bug, and so
you're one of those Disney gays, okay?
Yeah, it's yeah, I definitely am one of those. I mean, I like Disney and DC. I'm like pathologically uncool, and it's fine.
It's only if they had bought DC instead of Marvel, you would have been perfectly aligned, right?
But instead, that would have been hog ass heaven. Good Lord.
Well, your love of Disney definitely comes through in those sketches too, and again, that love means you can roast it because you love it enough to honor it in that way, and it definitely comes through.
Thanks. Oh yeah, cool.
I
did a Disney character on the my live stream last Wednesday.
Oh, awesome.
That I had never done live. It was like in the trunk from the one man show days, and it was fun. It went well.
Excellent.
Cool.
Bill, back to you. Oh, he's muted.
Oh,
you're muted, Bill. Oh, he's lagged.
I'm unmuted now.
There we go.
Might be having a delay, huh?
It's all good.
A little bit of one.
You get what you get what you pay for. So still bad.
You're good.
It's getting better.
I'll do my best on this Chris Reeve inspired Superman shirt, and we had a discussion last week about how many times we rebought the damn movie in different formats. I'm in a similar situation with Superman. That was the first movie I ever saw on its opening day. At 12 years old, my parents obviously knew, this was something that meant something a lot to me. I'm sure you've had an analysis of this, past the 2-year-old version of yourself. But why do you think that movie really spoke out to you?
The first one? Comedy of errors.
The first one, yes.
Cool. I was so young, so I now only have like memories of memories. But this sounds again like completely insane. But I think the way some people gravitate towards like Jesus, like a powerful being that like is there to save you. I really connected with that, and I actually think that if the Bible was written in a more interesting, had a little more daring do, some costumes and some powers,
more cape,
I think more people would be super into it, for better or worse. And he's just perfect in it. I mean, you just can't. Oh, somebody thinks he's not perfect in it.
I love Superman. In fact, I love him when he started getting drawn in the 90s, and I can't remember the artist who was on the main book. Past when he was resurrected, so post Reign of the Superman.
Okay.
I didn't care for the mullet much, but I did enjoy the chest fur. That was very different. I can't remember who started drawing him that way, but from that moment on, you got to see a lot more of that whenever he was shirtless.
I mean, John Byrne in the reboot, John Byrne drew him pretty hairy. Mm-hmm. But I do remember an issue of Superman: The Man of Steel, where he's in like an apron, like cutting vegetables, where he is very hairy. I think John. I don't know how to pronounce his last name. John Bogdanov.
Bogdanovich.
There's no itch. It just ends. But
Bogdanovi.
Bogdanovi. Look at this. All right.
Yes.
Oh, see. Oh, and in the comments we've got
also Burn
also
and probably Round Friends. Yeah, there we go. Thanks, James.
Hilarious. Yeah, the splash page of Superman #8 is him shirtless holding a tractor above his head. And it's fetching. Or maybe he's driving a wooden post into the ground. Something sexy.
And sexy and farm related.
Yes.
I think it's cool, though, that you're saying that, because I have said for years that, like, in my head, my totems, my idols, are Jesus, Superman, and Alan Turing, because I'm a nerd. But, like, they are so vibrant, and DC does such a good job of that, building mythology and making these ideas. Like, I'm sure, even though you didn't like the New 52 Action Comics Superman, but Grant Morrison, like All-Star Superman, is that one of your... Do you like that one?
I love it. Yeah. And there's definitely... I think the first few issues of Morrison's run on Action Comics kind of gave me those feels sometimes. Yeah. I think he wanted to do something so different from All-Star Superman, but in a way that just was less enjoyable.
It was very like, I want to recapture the early days of Superman, and early days, he was kind of a dick, but a dick for the people who needed it the most. He wasn't this golden Boy Scout or whatever, he wasn't this perfect figure. So I love that he tried to capture that, but I do agree, other than with a few exceptions, he dials back into the, I want to say Barack Obama Superman, but the other universe where there is a black Superman who was also president during the time that Barack Obama was president. So, I mean, it's like, those diversions are great. And like Final Crisis, where he takes Superman kind of out of the picture and does the adventures with the multiverse. I mean, all of those things. I think Grant Morrison gets Superman and does such beautiful music with that character.
Yeah. Totally. I mean,
but yeah, I love that your idea of a totem and relating him to Jesus. I think that's,
yeah. I'm not super into like the Christ imagery in like later Superman films, because that I don't quite buy. He's
the Zack Snyder
Moses than Christ, but yeah, I think he's
it should be a subtle comparison, not a beat you over the head with a cross comparison.
It should be just lead by example part. Great. This part, get it out of here.
He's hung like this. No, that's a different thing. Yeah.
I going back a little bit, Bryan, when you mentioned Dick for the People, I think that's something that Grant Morrison probably never would have thought of as a great a great sort of tagline for his Superman, like Superman, Dick for the People. I do like that. That could make a very interesting miniseries.
I want to see erotica for superheroes that is maybe not licensed, but is a thing that you can enjoy and written by good writers. Like, there's a place for Superman having sexy time. And in canon, maybe with Lois or whoever. Like, I feel like that sexuality of superheroes is so often like just walled off because it's a kids or children friendly, medium. But it's disappointing because we all know he could, especially even if Zack Snyder's movies are horrible. What's his name?
Henry Cavill.
Henry Cavill could get it as the hairy Superman, shirtless and all that.
We know he has been getting it because just the bathtub scene. I think it was Man of Steel. Was it Man of Steel or was it?
No, it was Batman versus Superman.
Yeah.
Yes. Anyway. Bill, you're a circle now. I see.
Yeah, I think this is the only way I'm going to be able to stay on the show tonight.
You're like, how?
A lot of issues, so you might have me for a voice for a bit.
You're a glowing white dot. It's cool. I like it. Every time you talk, it just sort of goes.
Okay, I'm Oz.
Great and powerful.
Don't look behind the curtain.
Oh well, did you hear us talking about sexy Superman getting sexy times?
Uh oh.
No.
Open the pod bay doors, Hal. Open the pod bay doors.
I'm sorry, Dave. I didn't
no.
hear that, Dave.
Oh no.
Oh no.
Well, while Bill is figuring out his thing, so what's next for you? You're working on your web series, which fantastic. I'm so glad it's catching on. With obviously the industry being in a weird situation, though, I guess starting to come back. Like, what are your goals? What are you trying to work on?
I mean, my just ultimate goal is just making comedy on television. So, going to keep writing samples and writing up pitches and all that kind of stuff. Been perfecting the art of the audition self-tape while I've been holed up here. My partner is a wonderful non-actor scene partner. I'm also cooking up a couple other things that I'll be able to talk about in about a week and a half.
Oh, exciting!
Yeah,
and we can see Bill again.
Yay! Yeah, it's
back.
All right, fellas. I think with this, with the tech issues that we're having, you might have to take up the slack if I disappear again.
We've been doing that, and you're perfect
right now, though.
You're
okay.
Perfect.
All right, let's hope this stays this way.
Yeah,
let's hope.
We've got some comments here about our interesting conversation. I think James had mentioned Superman shouldn't ever be in doubt about whether or not he should help people. Just say yes, I agree, and I think that was one of the things that came out of the New 52 era quite a bit. That sort of moral dilemma: should I do something? Like, yeah, always, it's Superman. And of course,
David Toby, can we not have him and Wonder Woman causing a natural disasters with their sexy times? 100%, I'm here for it. I am all about them having crazy sex throughout the world, knocking through mountains, causing floods with her WAP. I mean, whatever it is, I don't care. Let's just...
I think that's a Black Label.
Oh, that's probably going to be Black Label.
That's Black Label.
Wonder Woman, WAP. You're like, yeah, I don't know if that'll go over well with me. Peter Levins, of course, says, y'all need to breathe and find Jesus. Yeah.
I agree.
Sure.
And James Figueredo also. He's been a fan of yours since two Jasper Johns as the Jerk Brother.
Yeah, right. Cool. That's awesome. That's now been a while. I think that was like 9 years ago. That's amazing. Thanks.
Nice. John Runyon had actually asked about what I'm wearing on my sweatshirt. I think I've done this before. This is the TARDIS and the time machine, the DeLorean from Back to the Future. Of course, it gets into a severe accident. There's smoke coming off of it. It's just, it's bound to happen at some point. They're going to run into each other.
Hell yeah.
Nice boot shirt.
Bill, what are you wearing for tonight's festivities?
Oh, it's a bear playing an accordion for beer. Pretty faded.
I love that one a lot. I have the infamous superhero butts.
Yep.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm.
I never would have guessed that you would like to sexualize superheroes.
I know, right? it's a subtle thing. Yeah.
Yes.
Bryan, do you have that drawing of Captain Britain that most of us put our hands over our mouth?
No, but I know what you're talking about. Yes.
Trust us, Michael. It was enough for me to go to Jesus. Seeing that.
Speaking of Captain Britain, I don't know if we're going to talk about X of Swords or Ten of Swords. God, I always do that.
Cross of Swords?
Yeah, Cross of Swords. But there's some amazing Captain Britain stuff happening right now. Just as a teaser for eventual discussion, it is a love fest right now for Alan Moore's Captain Britain and also contemporary Brian Braddock and Betsy. Mm-hmm. So if you're not reading it,
all right. Well, if that's a bridge, why don't we head into that then? So when we talk about current comics, it's your usual round table in a square box with faces. So start over first. Naturally, we're nothing if not gracious to our guests. So Michael, what's something you're reading currently that you're digging?
Have you guys talked about crossover yet?
No. I know.
No. I mentioned it briefly, but we didn't go into it at all. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I read it.
Yeah, we didn't dive into it.
If I finally came today, and I really liked it.
Yay!
That's Donnie Cates, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's doing some great work everywhere.
It is really surprising.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not usually like I don't know. A lot of the books I read are getting canceled, so I was like, I could probably pick up some new stuff. And I just heard good chatter about crossover, and I think the premise is super interesting and cool. I'm not sure how much I should talk about what the premise is. But it is shocking. The end of the first issue is, to me, shocking in a really cool way. So I say you gotta get it.
So Steve, you got it, right?
I did. I feel the same way. I think it's a good first issue. Obviously, I'm going to continue reading it. I'm going to read the whole series as it comes out. The premise is just, it's good. I mean, we've had those, superheroes crossing over into real life before. Sort of like the basic premise of this book is that superheroes are here. This massive crossover event happens in Denver and just basically destroys the city, more or less, and creates an interesting environment in the rest of the United States where people are just sort of like, well, superheroes are real and they're awful because they killed all these people. So, comics are bad, and, people who read superhero comics are bad, and all sorts of things. But, it's interesting. I mean, I like that this is coming in the same year that we got Olympia, which was such an amazing...
Oh, I loved Olympia.
Such an amazing book with that similar premise where, a comic book character comes in. And Michael, I don't know if you've read Olympia, put up by Image. If you like crossover, you'll really enjoy Olympia. It's a much smaller story. But it has some of the similar themes, and has a lot of heart to it.
Great. I like themes, and I like art.
Themes are good. My favorite theme is a good trope. I do enjoy a good trope with my themes. But no, I totally agree with you. Crossover is it's a good read, and it goes in places you don't expect it to go.
I think the comic store owner is weirdly introduced, because you later find out that the shirt he's wearing is ironic, but you don't know that at first. So you spend 2 pages being so confused about what side he's on.
With the Wortham
through it, push through it.
I mean, you have the mic.
Oh, you're back on mute. Oh, he's pulling something.
Did you hear what I said earlier?
No, you were on mute.
You're on mute.
Oh, that was ages ago. Okay, just tell me when you hear me.
Yeah,
I can hear you.
Yikes! All right, Steve. Why don't you head over to something that you're reading that you're digging?
Well, I'm going to continue with the more indie books. So Aftershock just put out a new series called Miskatonic, which is it's a series written by Mark Sable, who's also written, I think, Aftershock's God Killers, which I didn't read, so forgive me there. And then drawn by Giorgio Petrelli, who's done Dylan Dog. He's worked on Heavy Metal. He's done a lot of European comics as well. But it's very interesting. I was a huge fan of Providence that came out several years ago. Alan Moore's book with Jason Burroughs on art. And this reminds me very much of this. It's a cool 1920s set, I think actually 1924, because it takes place right after Herbert Hoover is made the acting director of what becomes the FBI. And he sends the character on the front cover here, Agent Keller, to the town of Innsmouth. There's Providence down there. The town of Innsmouth in the Miskatonic Valley up in New England, which has had a shocking murder. Somebody blew up on with a package bomb that she has to investigate with another former agent, Tom Malone. And of course, it is full-on Lovecraft. All the, half of the people in Innsmouth are all green and look very frog-like, and everybody just kind of, brushes it off as in like, they're kids. There was a plague here like 100 years ago, and people look weird, and all sorts of things. And of course, it very quickly becomes a run for their life. They're being chased by cultists and mutants, and they run into a Deep Ones orgy, and there's just all sorts of craziness that happens in 22 pages. It's definitely a good first issue. It's not as heady as Providence was. Providence was brilliant, but there was a lot to read into in that book. This one, it's, it throws you right into it, and where it's going more or less, or what to expect more or less in the first issue. But they do have a really great thing at the end of prose that kind of brings you up to speed if you're not too familiar with Lovecraft, by talking about some other spots like the town of Arkham and Miskatonic University and a couple places to kind of give you, a bit of a crash course in Lovecraft if you're not familiar. But it's cool. The art's fun. The setting, who doesn't love the 1920s? They're really big right now, apparently, because we're at the century mark. So 20s are cool again, bootleggers and stuff. But it's cool. It's really interesting. I love the characters so far. So yeah, Miskatonic by Aftershock. Pick it up. The number one just came out last week. So
you did a much better job of synopsizing your
all
book
right,
than I did.
heading over to Bryan. Bryan, tell us about.
So I have talked about this book before. I do encourage all of you to check it out if you have not. This is Rorschach. I'm trying to pull up the title page here. Rorschach number 2 from DC, based off of the Rorschach, of course, from the Watchmen universe. This is, Bill's got the trade, or the single issue down there. So Tom King, Jorge Fornes. Is that what you say? It says Fornes. I always screw his name up. I apologize in advance so much. With amazing color work by Dave Stewart, by the way, not to slouch. I love this issue because it takes this idea of the sort of modern day Watchmen universe that we, as we talked about previously, is sort of ambiguous. It could be from the comic. It could be from the TV show. It's from the movies. It's not. It sort of fits in all of it, right? And it picks up a story that's like it's an investigation about an attempted assassination. And the person who was going to be the assassin was this Rorschach character. And then the first issue kind of starts it out, gives you what you need to know, sets the world, all that. This issue, you finally start to kind of get a better sense for some of what Tom King is doing here, and it is brilliant. And I'm not going to spoil a lot, but I want to show you a couple pages here that I think are phenomenal. And just the layout, the whole thing is just amazing. So this is basically the blue panels are the current police investigator detective guy. He is investigating the assailants who were killed as part of the assassination attempt. So the top and bottom-most panels are the blue current presence panel. And then in the middle, you have this different tune. It's kind of a red hint. That's the past. And so all of these, and this throughout the whole issue, you jump back and forth in time. And the way you know, other than the story that's portrayed, is the hue of the candle. So great visual shorthand, works so well. Throughout the comic does this. It's fantastic. Then you get to this amazing idea that I'm sure has been done, but I've never encountered it before. You get comic book original art pages, black and white, pencils, blue lines, the lettering as an overlay. If you look really carefully, you can see that it's in a different color. It's like a white, like a sticker or some kind of a overlay. About this character called the Citizen, which obviously at first people would be like, oh, that looks like Rorschach. But is actually the Question, kind of, except he's not. He's the Citizen. And the idea that the person who is in Rorschach's outfit is actually a comic book illustrator who had previously created this Question-like character. And it's not just that he's the Question. He's the Question as an objectivist hero, the way Ditko drew him. And so there's a clear through line here from the Ditko origin of the Question. Ditko created the Question, right? All the way into the Rorschach Watchmen universe, circling back into that. It's such a cool hat trick, and I'm just in love with what he's doing. As a comic book fan of the medium, of storytelling choices and visual design, and as someone who just Tom King is a comic book fan. A lot of comic book writers are at their core comic book fans, but he has made this correlation and this connection in a way that I don't think is meant to be it's not exploitive. And he's not saying Ditko is this assassin guy either. It's not what he's doing. But to sort of play with the true kind of roots of these concepts and even getting, I think, potentially into this idea that this comic book creator was disillusioned with society enough to go down this rabbit hole of objectivism and potentially become this radicalized, superhero, not really, as Rorschach, is so interesting. And I kind of see how it might fit in with sort of a commentary on the current politics and cultures of the far right, alt-right, whatever. So yeah, it's all coming together, and this is only the second issue. So I can't wait to see what's next. Anybody else get this yet? I know, Bill, you got the first issue.
I got the first issue. I didn't get the second one yet, but I do think that the overtones of what QAnon is doing to our society and actually having Ditko effectively as the character in the book, there's a lot of novel things about Tom King's approach. And, we've had, whether you look at Doomsday Clock or the TV series or Rorschach, this continual reinvention of this property that keeps it fresh. And I think this is, I can't wait to see where this goes, because I don't know exactly where it will go.
And it looks like we've got another an actual fan of Tom King here, another fan of Tom King with David Toby in the comments. Oh yes, that Tom King formalism straight into the vein, baby. Yes, yeah. I haven't read this yet, but I am looking forward to having all the issues so I can read it all in one go, which is how I like my Watchmen spin-offs. But yeah, this is it's a Russian doll of a book, it looks like, so pretty cool.
Yeah, I got the first issue and liked it. I think the second issue is going to be delivered on Friday, and now I'm really looking forward to it because it seems like Rorschach is in the book this time, and yeah, it looks like it's
for a little bit more, maybe.
Oh, okay.
You'll get there. Yeah, it's Scotch. But no, I will tell you this: as you're reading this, take your time. Obviously, I'm sure you do. And then when you're done, go back to the beginning and see how it all kind of knits together. It is one of the best single issues I've read in a long while. It's
cool.
really perfect.
I'm so excited for this. It looks like it's skewing towards the good end of Tom King.
Wait a minute, them's their fighting words. What Tom King is less good?
Tell me you read Nightmare.
Oh, no.
And loved it.
Oh no, that's true. That's fair.
You can't tell me that.
Fair,
right.
fair, very fair.
I was like, he's still dreaming? I feel like this has been 9 months. What, man? This is still a terrible dream? This seems much better.
Yeah. Also, Brian, since you brought in the question type character, since they're still fairly cheap and easy to get in terms of Steve Ditko's self-published stuff, a lot of those threads continued into a character named Mr. A. And if you ever read that, I mean, it's like Randy and Meth. It's really out there. And I think it's in terms of a supplement of that particular type of character, it's definitely worth investigating. Not necessarily enjoying, but investigating.
Randy and Meth. I mean, I guess that would.
It's
work.
addictive. No, it's like meth, and that it sort of like fills a void in some horrible way, but it's addictive as hell. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at the QAnon.
A certain direction.
You look at the QAnon and even some of the like maybe less conspiratorial, but still equally horrifying right wing people, and that objectivism, and Ayn Rand is so important to them. It's yeah.
Yeah.
So
Randy and Meth.
So all right, it just came out. Brian, since you brought it up, why don't you talk a little bit about Ten of Swords, just to give the Marvelous competition a little bit of time.
So I am caught up on Ten of Swords as of this week. There was a clickbaity nonsense headline that was like, they killed off 2 more X-Men. They killed off blah, blah, blah. And, of course, then I'm like, all right, I got to read my books now. I got to figure out. Don't buy into the clickbait. I mean, I don't think I have to say that out loud. I think that's understood. But still, people are killed. Certainly death happens. But it's not the same level as you might expect. And what I found especially enjoyable, and more from what we talked about last time, is the nature of this competition. It just keeps changing, and Steve, do you remember which issue had the like quick fire one competition after the other with just single panels? It was not Hellions, because Hellions is where the death happens, by the way. It wasn't Cable, because Cable was kind of dark and sad and kind of whatever.
I haven't read Cable yet.
It was the first of the 3 this week. X-Force. Okay. It was X-Force. Yeah. So there's this scene, and I'm going to see. I can't. It's going to be hard to pull up on my computer. But like I said, single panel competitions, one after the other, and there is a panel that is a obvious like disco night somewhere at a club, where Doug Cypher is that what he goes by now? Cypher, right?
Yeah, it's Doug Locke.
Doug Locke, yeah. He's like just full on doing like the John Travolta, disco moves there. And that was a competition, evidently. That's one of these, this whatever they call this event, Contest of Champions or whatever. Then there is like an eating competition, like obviously, clearly, like was like Wolverine and somebody else competing for who can eat the fastest, I guess. I don't know. And then this is the best one. So all those are great. But there is one that is a clear runway, like lip sync for your life off between. They don't show who the Araco people are, but they have Wolverine and Storm on a runway. And I like spit out whatever I was drinking. I doubled over and guffawed. I mean, whatever, all the tropes, right? It was spectacular. And so I love that this book is surprising me. It's still got some a lot of dark themes, and a lot of really just horrible things are happening to our mutants. But ultimately, I think they're finally getting to that point in the story where the real battle is going to happen, and it's going to be a standoff. It's going to be a standoff between two integral characters to this whole thing, and I'm there for that. I'm going to be very invested in seeing that. I mean, it's not really a big spoiler if you're keeping up at all. It's Apocalypse and his wife. I mean, we've talked about it on the show. It's not a thing. But all of it's been solid. Steve, what did you think?
Well, I haven't caught up with all of this week's books, but from last week and, everything kind of going, I would say turning the whole idea of the competition on its head. I mean, we've been spending the past 2-3 months just looking at them getting ready to cleave each other in twain, basically just go and have these massive sword fights. And that's what everybody's thinking they're doing. And then, you get Doug getting married. You have a drinking competition between Wolverine and Storm, and that's the competition. Is they both get a point because they both win because they both got drunk. But then that ties into the next battle, which is supposed to be two people from Araco settling a score, but then one of the competitors basically swaps places with Wolverine and says, actually, kill him instead. And it's just like it's wild. You don't know what's going on. And this is peak. It is peak Excalibur. It is peak Captain Britain, and it is peak Omniverse stuff from Marvel UK and 80s 90s Excalibur, just wackiness. And it wouldn't surprise me if Jamie was pulling the strings the whole time by himself in the background. But he doesn't have to, because this is how Saturnine kind of did her shit, like, all the time. It was
He's sitting on the throne in his loincloth, as you can remember from Excalibur, if you think back to that.
I do, way back. That ticked something for me, even though he was a little skinny for me. But he was still like...
So, John Runyon, yes, when you read this week's books, Doug is getting to live his best life. Although there is a moment in Cable that I won't spoil this part, but it challenges maybe some of that in a bad way, and it's a thing. Yeah. But yeah, Doug's getting some, from flower crowns to disco. He's getting some great stuff. And then Cable this week, there is probably one of the best reads. Sassy Sinister, not Sassy Trump. That's another great example of modern, weird, bizarre combinations. But anyway, Sassy Sinister gets to read Kate to Kitty. I guess she goes by Kate now. Kate Price. It is a great moment for bitchy, sassy Mr. Sinister. So yeah, a lot of good stuff this week in the X books.
I have to say this, and I know that for those of you who've been keeping up and read about Doug's wedding to, and I can't remember her name, but it's an interesting dynamic because neither of them, or he can't understand her, and she's the first living creature that he hasn't been able to speak to because she doesn't speak with the normal language, and they apparently both hit it off, and of course they get married randomly. Why not? Why not marry them? But I want to watch Doug and Red Vine or Red Leaf, the Araco version of Doug, basically, who has been living with and speaking with, is the voice of Araco, because Doug is the voice of Krakoa. And I think that there's going to be something that will happen between the two of them. At the end, because neither of them are like, none of this is good. This is stupid. We need to bring the islands together, and none of this is happening to bring the islands together. So I think that something's going to happen with those two that's going to change things. But I mean, we're in the home stretch right now. I mean, how many more weeks? 2 more weeks, I think. Of this?
1 or 2 at most, because they're at 19 of 22 right now. So yeah.
Yeah, and then there's the final wrap up book and. Yeah, I think we're almost done with it, and I'm excited to see what's going to happen. Shockingly, for a long-running Marvel crossover, I'm shockingly ready for a good resolution.
Yeah, I did get a few of the books in the last box. Still have a lot to get caught up on there. My main reading since my last DCBS box came in was DC. So somehow I got through 49 DC books since Saturday. There's two I want to talk about, both which are anniversary issues. The first is the better than I expected Batman 100. I've kind of been, not really impressed with Joker War. It seems like these are tropes that we've seen again and again and again. But again, this does wrap up Joker War. And the interesting thing about where it leaves the characters is that both Batman and Bruce Wayne are in different places at the end of the war. I don't think this is going to be a big spoiler because there's been press about this, but because of the machinations of the Joker during the Joker War, Bruce no longer has his fortune. Oracle was able to transfer it over to Lucius Fox, and it's staying with Lucius for the time being because the Wayne Foundation board is really pissed off at Bruce for a number of reasons. So while he's still an incredibly wealthy man, he ain't Batman wealthy anymore. So that's going to bring a different dynamic to the character. Also, with the way Gotham has been set up, the city is tired of what Batman generates. And we leave it with a mayoral candidate that is running on a no masks policy. And, with everything that the city's been through, if this was real life, I'd probably be in that bracket too. It's like, the Civil War with Marvel Civil War, which side are you on? Oh, I'm on this side, but if they really existed, I'd totally be on the other one. And there's also some backup stories with some of the newer characters like Punchline and Clown Hunter. And, again, as I said, Joker War was hit or miss for me. I thought some of the tie-ins were far more, were far better executed than the main series. But in terms of what this does as an anniversary issue, as a reset to the status quo, I also feel you didn't have to know anything going into this book to read it. And I know, Steve, you've taken a break from Batman for a while, haven't you?
I haven't read anything.
So I think this would be a nice mechanism for you to get caught up to speed without, the old X-Men trope of retreating to Wikipedia every fourth page. So, so Batman 100, the other anniversary issue I wanted to talk about, and this was a series I wasn't really enamored with through its entire run in this iteration, but Batgirl. Since it started with Rebirth, I thought there were times it was a bit aimless, and I thought it was a shame because I really like Cecil Castellucci as a writer, and you could tell she was having fun, but it was just a bit meandering. The loose ends are tied up beautifully in this issue, and there's a nice reset for Barbara Gordon, and she's coming to a realization that maybe she doesn't serve the world best as Batgirl currently. Maybe it's better as Oracle, and more importantly, better as a politician. As I said, in the past, gray hair, old as sand. When I first was exposed to Batgirl, she was, effectively a guest star in Superman and Superman Family. That was her only new appearances until Batman Family came along. And at that time, she was a junior congresswoman, and they're kind of treading on those lines there. And with everything going on in our world, I think Barbara Gordon, would be like an AOC type of voice. And, it's also, there's just certain conceits you have to live with, that James Gordon doesn't get that this is his daughter. I guess Mensa's not going to be recruiting him anytime soon. But with the ground that this covers, and as a series finale, was really well done, and I was glad to see a book like this go out on a high note, and to go out, but also provide a lot of opportunities for where the character can go. So, like that one a lot.
That cover right there is pretty.
Oh yeah,
is gorgeous. That's a gorgeous.
Yeah,
cover.
Let me see who the cover artist was. Joshua Middleton.
Yeah,
good.
Yeah, that's a beautiful cover.
And it's
so late here.
So with Batgirl ending, I know that DC's cut a lot of their books. Cut a lot of their line and sticking with some of the big ones. There are a couple new books that are coming out. The Batman Catwoman series that's been planned forever. Do you think that that Batgirl's going to get her own book again, especially given this new direction, or are we looking at like a 5-year drought?
I don't know how long that will be. I think a lot of that will depend upon whatever the new initiatives that DC are going to have. They've been pretty open about books going digitally first to a far greater extent, and that's also one of the commitments to DC Universe Unlimited. A lot of the digital originals, if you've read them, they're fine done in one stories, but they're kind of meaningless. And again, a lot of this was back inventory from the 100-page super spectaculars. I think when they do get into, this new omniverse mode, that the digital stories will have a bit more bite to them. And I think the digital platform may benefit secondary characters like Batgirl a little more. That they won't have the break-even threshold that print necessarily needs. Right now you have the marquee characters that are in the digital books, but characters that are very well known that can't seem to support a book for long. Another character I think is Swamp Thing. Along those lines for how things stand right now, I think a digital Swamp Thing series, that was tied to continuity and not done in one stories, I think could probably work very well. So it'll be interesting to see that. At the same token, with the sort of kind of transition back to Oracle, which is key in Joker War. Sorry if it's a spoiler, but again, people know. I think the terrain that sets up for another go at Birds of Prey, which again is a name that I think still has marquee value and just needs the right creators in the driver's seat for that. Yeah. So, I absolutely love the classic Barbara Dinah Birds of Prey setup, and that was always something. I'm glad we had Batgirl again, but at the same token, don't fix what ain't broke. And there was so much more to that character when she moved into that situation, that it was a shame to not see it around. And there've been spurts. The Batgirl of Burnside I thought was a lot of fun. But where that goes from here, I don't know. But I think I've given them a good idea with the digital thing there, with the maybe using some of the secondary and third level characters instead of the Supermans and Batmans for that kind of storytelling. So who knows? Cool. Yeah, but yeah, I almost said it was almost easier to show you the DC books that I didn't read yet, which were Tales of the Dark Multiverse, Batman Hush. I didn't get to that.
Because I hear that makes it more of a depressing story.
Yeah. That's it. It's subtitled A Zany Comedy. I didn't get to the Batman Max crossover, which after a long delay, because Sam Keith likes his drugs. We didn't have that for a few months. The Doomed and the Damned, the Halloween special. It's 80 pages. Yeah, and the Hellraiser Rise and Fall, which I'm looking forward to. But those were the books I didn't get to.
Yeah, I haven't read those yet.
Oh, and advocating for any of the fans that can help me out. I'm behind on the Batman's Grave, the Warren Ellis series, because 7, they canceled the solicit and I never reordered it, and I can't find it, and I want to pay cover price. So if anybody sees it, help me out.
Yeah. Sorry. I don't have any.
Steve, if you want to get to it really quickly, I know you read an original graphic novel. If you want to talk about that briefly.
Yeah, I'll just bring it up as a quick recommendation.
Yeah.
So this was actually recommended to me from my queer book group that I've belonged to for several years here in Winston. Wonderful group of people. Love, once a month meeting up and hanging out and talking about great queer books. One of the books that was recommended is a graphic novel. It's the first full graphic novel from the author, Mike Curato, called Flamer. He actually does some YA as well as children's books. He's an illustrator for children's books, and this is it's not autobiographical, but it is inspired by his own story as a young Boy Scout. The main character here, I think it's Aiden Navarro. Basically, he's in between junior high and high school, private school, and going into public school. And that sort of oasis that he's been counting on is the summer camp for Boy Scouts. And so he's a huge scout, loves it, and it's where he doesn't feel weird. Where he does feel weird the rest of the time. He's obviously struggling with his sexuality, or at least, he knows he's gay, and he's been bullied for it for a long time, but he has never really come out to himself or anyone else. And of course, this is a very confusing time for him. A lot of things happen at camp, and he goes through all the emotions here. So it is very, there's some funny moments, but it's very emotional. And there's a lot that for me at this time, like looking at his age, I was going through a lot of these things. I was not a Boy Scout though. So thankfully I wasn't out in the woods with a bunch of other mans, at the age of 14 for 6 weeks. But it's very interesting. Very, I would say it's a quick read, even though it is a relatively thick book. Beautifully done, mostly black and white with obviously some strategic color. So don't want to spoil too much for you. That picture is actually not a spoiler so much, but it's a wonderful book, and really do recommend it. It's put out by Godwin Books, Henry Holt and Company. So not known for graphic novels, but if you see it, pick it up.
Cool.
I hope that was quick enough. It might have been too long.
It was so great that it flamed Bill completely out of the video.
He's just Bill is gone. He had it. He had a.
He doesn't like YA.
Yeah,
YA is divisive, right? I mean, it could run somebody off. So, Michael, what? I know you just talked about your book, but is there any other books you're really interested in or excited about coming out?
Frankly, I'm just champing at the bit to find out who is replacing Bendis on these Superman books.
Oh my God, is that official?
No.
Is that official?
Yeah, his run's ending, and then there's Future State, and whatever is on the other side of that, I want to know.
Oh yeah.
Do we know if Bendis is sticking around with DC yet or no?
He is.
Okay.
Seemingly, yes. Because I think he's still continuing to write Legion, and then I think he's got some big thing he's doing. But I'm very much looking forward to whatever is next.
Oh, so you're not a fan of Bendis' stuff on Superman?
I am not living for it, I will tell you that much. It's had bright spots here and there. What's up?
I think Bendis has the Superman Lois voice right.
Yeah.
Am I still choppy?
No.
Okay.
You're good.
I think Superman. Okay. I think Bendis has the Superman Lois voice right. But there's some other things that I think they'd be better served with another character. The big bad that they've been dealing with, I don't think is worthy of Superman. If that makes sense.
I'm way at the beginning of the run, Michael, I guess. So I gotta get caught up, and then I'll probably agree with you.
What was that, Bill?
Okay. Yeah. It looks like I'm gonna stay choppy here. So Bryan, you might have to take over for good to wrap up the show. But Michael, I just wanted to get in. If you did have a choice of writers to take over Superman in action, who would you want to see?
I mean, I could not believe when Bendis was announced because I was so enjoying Tomasi's run on Superman. I was like, why are we ending this? This has actually been the most exciting time to be a Superman fan because I have no idea what's going to happen next. And then they took Little John and aged him. I just can't believe it. So sorry if that's a spoiler, Bryan.
Oh no, I'm that far. So yeah, I know that one. But yeah.
But I just want Tomasi back on Superman. I loved like Rebirth Superman, even though like suddenly he's married, he has a child. Like those things are so different.
Yeah.
But it felt like Superman.
Bendis also loved that run, and so I was at least pleased, even though Bendis was sort of pushed into it, or not pushed in, but he didn't disregard any of that. Like so often writers can just go, I'm not taking any of that nonsense. He loved it and he built on it. But yeah, the aging up, it's he had to work him into. He tried to fix the whole Legion Superboy problem, and that was his solution.
That's a plot-based solution, and it's. I think stories are better served by character-based solutions.
Fair.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm big on bringing Tomasi back. I don't know if that's the kind of thing they'll do. They certainly brought Jurgens back to write Action Comics, which I also liked fine. No? Okay. Superman was way better.
I am a fan of Jurgens back in the day, but when he came on, didn't he come on with the New 52 and he did that run we were talking about that was like
I mean, it feels like he was brought in a hurry because George Perez was like, "No, ma'am, I'm not working under these conditions."
Which fair, right?
Yeah, fair.
But Jurgens is good. The Jurgens, and again, Jurgens at New 52, rough. Throughout, then later into the run and did more. He got dialed back into what his original Superman stuff was so great. Yeah, so I'm interested who they bring on now. I would love, what I would love if they bring in some diversity in the writing, kind of like they did with Ta-Nehisi Coates writing Captain America. I want that right. I want Jin Liu Yang, who did a fantastic,
the best thing of the year.
I would
smashes the Klan.
Love to see that. But yeah, I don't know with DC really right now. I mean, they're going to have Superman books, right? As long as there are comics being published, there will be Superman comics or Action Comics. So who that is I don't know. So it looks like Bill has succumbed to the technology. So this is
like that scene in Superman 3 when like the computer takes over.
Do you know that is still one of the scariest like images of my childhood? Is that woman like
absorbed by the wires? Like that just freaked me out. Like that with like the hands coming out, just like
I can't watch that movie to this day other than like I can watch the beginning of Richard Pryor and all that nonsense, but I cannot finish it because of that nonsense. Bill did chime in through the chat.
Unwatchable for other reasons, but
I think Mark Waid, now that we know he's coming back to DC in some form, I think him on Superman. Tom Taylor is such an underrated writer in comics in general, but especially with his work on Deceased and all of the fantastic. Are you reading any of the Deceased stuff? We haven't talked about it much on the show.
I haven't read any of it.
Everything I've heard, and I've only read like the first issue just to get the setup. It is, if you like character driven, not plot driven, it is perfect. It is great.
Oh, cool.
So I need to, it's DC is like not my first thing. Obviously I'm more of a Marvel person, but Deceased rather, I'm interested and I want to get through, it's like the Marvel Zombies equivalent, but with anti-life and with crazier consequences. So it's,
And Earth 2. like the New 52 Earth 2 comes back. Like there's a lot of stuff that's in it. The one thing though, Tom Taylor, he really got the voice of sort of like these otherworld, worst case scenarios with DC with Injustice, because he did write the Injustice tie-in comics that lasted far longer than any other comic, video game tie-in probably had the right to do, because they were so good. And he's kind of taking a lot of that, the lessons learned from that series or those series, and putting it in Deceased. And I think Deceased is for an apocalyptic disaster, event title, I guess, even though it's completely outside of continuity. I'm liking that a lot more than I'm liking all the craziness with death metal. I don't know, it's just more consequential in DC because of death metal, even though Deceased is out of continuity totally. So
death metal is unfortunately kind of going like plot. Like if you talked about problems of plot driven.
I mean, the first one, I was like, I don't know what this is. I can't care about this. It's absolute gobbledygook nonsense to me.
Yeah.
Truly, it's like reading just like words, like monkeys at a typewriter.
And it's not Hamlet.
I skip to this one. Exactly.
Yeah.
It's taking the Grant Morrison-iness of comics without the Grant Morrison joy. I think, from what I've read, I'm only halfway through. I bought the new issues. I haven't got caught up, but yeah, it
feels very spot on.
I did think, if Tom Taylor is not on Action, give him Justice League, and I totally agree with that. I think Tom Taylor knows how to take groups of
like the real thing itself. Like when I hear it come on Spotify, not that it ever does. The one good thing about death metal is it's almost over.
It's always short. It's just like a minute and 20 seconds. The one thing, though, I did read the new Lobo tie-in, like one-shot issue. I think it was like extreme something, whatever, death metal. It did have the joy. It was goofy. It was funny. It was like very 90s Lobo ridiculousness. And I think that is probably one of the better or one of the more fun issues that I've read of tie-in issues for these things. Because it didn't have like this sense of absolute utter hopelessness on every page. Because it was Lobo being ridiculously Lobo. Basically being Deadpool.
Being the main man himself, yeah.
Yes. Lots of bastages. There's some interesting bastich word of play that just like, I was like,
do we need bastich word of play? Do we really?
I hope someone got fragged.
Yes!
Oh, there were lots of Lobo fraggings. Lots of Lobo on Lobo fragging.
He could frag me. I mean, I'm just saying. I'd probably be into that.
Like, I think about Lobo, I'm like, yeah, I could hit that. And then I'm thinking, like, he probably smells really bad.
Oh. Have you ever been to a concert and gotten backstage and talked to a roadie? No shame here. But the touring life does not breed good hygiene, is what I'm really saying.
Yeah. So you're basically just calling Lobo just a murderous roadie?
He's a murderous, past his prime roadie at this point. I think he may have used to have been in a heavy metal band, like when he was in college or early on. Just didn't work for him, but he couldn't leave the lifestyle, so he kind of took that route.
Nobody listened to his demo, and he just fell into it. Just all in
man.
He started doing security, and he stabbed a bunch of people in the Zarnian equivalent of Altamont.
Yeah. There were two fire him, so they just kept him on, and they don't even pay him. He's just
there.
And now he's all about those sloppy seconds from the main band. He's just waiting for those lot lizards to come in and give him that.
Thirds, fourths.
I need to be writing notes because runoff trim.
Runoff trim.
Beautiful.
That sounds like something that I was going to get for the outside of my house when we redid our sign. Runoff.
Well, it's like when who's the country star with the mask? The country star who has like the face mask. You know what I'm talking about?
No.
Orville Peck. Orville Peck. Oh my God, Orville Peck.
Googling this shit.
Orville Peck. Oh my God, if you're not familiar with the work of Orville Peck, gay country legend, did a duet with Shania Twain recently that was beautiful, lovely. Has this baritone voice that is, it's not perfect. It could be, there's a little bit of work that could be done, right? But it's country, so you don't need to really.
I have seen this. This is
so. Runoff Trim to me is just like, as he's trying to figure out what mask he's gonna get. Anyway, sorry, the whole thing gone. The moment's passed. We're done.
So Orville Peck be your woof of the week, or do you have another woof of the week?
Well, it's so funny you mentioned that because yes, Bill is gonna have us. He's passed the baton from the afterlife.
Very subtle.
He's just controlling it from the keyboard,
and his ghost keeps popping in here. Let's see, he's there.
There he is. He's back
from the dead.
I think I've been omactivated. Yeah,
Brother Eye, how dare you?
I think I have the OMAC virus.
Yeah.
I can't wait to hear other people run the woofs of the week. So I'm just going to sit here and look pretty, and you guys take it from here because the tech's against me.
Aw. All right. So, of course, if you're a listener a long time or just joined us, we do a segment called the Woof of the Week. It's anything that's giving you life, getting you excited for what your COVID life looks like tomorrow. What is that one piece of pop culture that is lighting you up and you want to share? Steve, take it away. What's your Woof of the Week?
Well, I was going to say that Naked Attraction is back on the air, which of course is just always exciting. It's the British show where they date by seeing naked people, and they just kind of like, your dick's not big enough, off you go, I don't like your hair, and whatever. But I'm not. I'm actually going to give a Woof of the Week to New Mutants, the movie that I finally saw because it was released this week digitally and I think also on Blu-ray. But what Bill was saying is that Blu-ray is looking crazy expensive. He can't find it any cheaper for than $25 for that's Disney prices right there. That's kind of
straight from the vault.
Straight from the vault, and back to the vault it'll go because it wasn't the best movie ever. I did, I didn't have high expectations for this, and and I wasn't disappointed because my expectations were down here. So was it worth the 2-year wait? I would still say yes. I mean, we've wanted to see this movie. People who are X-Men fans have wanted to see this movie forever. It was such an interesting premise to have, mutants and a horror movie shoved together. New Mutants are, I know for a lot of people, especially getting into the X-Men in the 80s and, pre-X-Force days, those were a lot of people's favorite mutants. And we got to see one of, a group of them that are pretty close to being the original group of New Mutants. I thought the acting was really great. I thought the effects were not terrible. It was cool seeing Ileana. It was cool seeing Anya Taylor-Joy after having binge-watched Queen's Gambit. Seeing her in a very serious, very amazing, shockingly good role, and then seeing her with a questionable Russian accent and a long blonde wig, carrying around a sock puppet called Lockheed that eventually does become a CGI creature. But I had a lot of fun with this movie. I thought it was great. My husband and I watched it and we enjoyed it. Was it great? Was it an amazing movie? No, but if you keep your expectations low, it is definitely a fun watch, and I do recommend it. You can rent it digitally, or you can buy it digitally or on Blu-ray right now. I think I paid $20. I was like, I'll throw them some bones because they've been really, really waiting for this thing to come out and somebody to see it. So there you go. That was my Woof of the Week.
Michael, what about you? What's your Woof of the Week?
My Woof of the Week is a YouTube video, if it can be believed. It is on the It Gets Better Project channel. And it's called 10 Years Better. Former Fort Worth Councilman Joel Burns reacts to his original It Gets Better video. So this was a Fort Worth city councilman who 10 years ago went viral by coming out to the city council in this meeting. And this revisits him, and he talks about what he's been up to since and the impact of him coming out has had on his life and other people's lives. And it is extra woof of the week because now he is so cute I could scream. So you will cry a bunch, but you will also absolutely want to make out with him.
What is his name and how do you spell it?
Joel Burns. Exactly how you think.
Oh, the good kind of Burns. Okay.
So, like, when he came out 10 years ago, he was like a little scrappy little ginger guy, and now he is a piece of meat, and I like it.
Love it.
And it's also a really sweet life affirming.
He's a sweet piece of meat. There you go.
Better than he being a piece of sweetmeat or something. Right?
Yeah, well, I'd take that too.
We also have a woof of the week from the chat. You know, this is actually a good idea. You in the chat should certainly share us your woof of the week. So, John Runyon, my woof of the week is checking out Marvel Voices and Marvel Voices Indigenous Voices that came out. I have not read that. I will go get that tonight. Gonna get caught up on my books this week, and also shout out to Juggernaut issue 3, the only X book that's not part of Exosaurs as far as I can tell. Very incredibly random, but fun to follow along. All right, great recommendation.
I've been enjoying Juggernaut too. I do have to say, Juggernaut is great. It's a good breather when you're dealing with all the other X books, and then here's Juggernaut like off doing his own thing somewhere else. So
I am woefully behind. I have every other X book now, but that I will have to check that out. So my woof, speaking of Steve's woof, and you know, I apologize because sometimes I think I re-woof things that we've already talked about. I don't remember if we woofed Queen's Gambit. Did we already do this?
I don't think we woofed Queen's Gambit. I think we mentioned it, but we didn't woof it.
I am the last basic bitch to finish this, evidently. But my boyfriend and I just finished it last night. Yes, Anya Taylor-Joy is a delight. There are many fantastic actors and actresses in this piece. But I want to talk about queer representation in a way that is not the Lifetime special, beat you over the head with it, but it's there. And I think this miniseries, of all of the things that it does well, and it does a lot very well, it does work in queer representation in a way that you totally could miss if you're not paying attention, which in a bygone era is a problem. But I think in the current era is sort of refreshing because you're like, oh yeah, they're queer. All right, whatever, cool. Let's move on. Let's do our thing. And trans as well. I found out one of the characters is trans, as a trans actor, a trans woman actor. And in the story, you may or may not pick up on it. It doesn't matter because it's not a story beat. But the fact that she was hired, and anyway, all of it being said, if you want a palliative to soothe the soul about an intellectual game and the foibles of this young woman in life, learning how to be good at this game and also learning how to deal with her addiction and her family stuff. I think you can't do better. It is from a bygone era, but done expertly well. I understand now why everybody is really digging it. And again, it's a palliative because, you know, it's straightforward. You don't have a lot of too much, I don't know, things from the world right now. Like I just watched the Birdsong trailer from Michael Bay, a producer. That's basically the pandemic movie that we don't need right now. Taking that and combined with watching shit going on like in Michigan and with all the certification of election and Trump be Trump and all that, this is a nice way to spend your evening that's not that. So if you have not watched Queen's Gambit yet, I don't know why not. Netflix is like, it's the thing right now, and it's a delight. So take that from us.
First episode so far, but I enjoyed it. I just haven't gotten to the second yet.
It's very it's easy to kind of watch it and be like, okay, it's not clickbait. It's not pushing you one into the next bingey, you know. But you get that second one and you start to sort of see the track, and you stay on the track. And that's the thing. Like I love narrative that surprises me. I love bold choices, whether they work or don't. The third day we talked about, I think last time, that's a thing that does not work all the time, but they make bold choices.
They do.
Yeah, and I give them all the credit for that. But this is not that. This is, yep, we're going to do this thing. It actually reminds me of miniseries and TV movies from a bygone era on like big network TV. That's sort of safe, but just elevated in a way that you could probably only do now with like Netflix or some of these cable outlets or whatever, streaming outlets. So and Anna Taylor-Joy, she plays someone on the spectrum, and that's really cool because they don't make a thing about it, but clearly she's got that, working against her or for her in both ways. And it explains chess in a way that I've never seen any show or movie. And maybe I just haven't, been exposed to them, but like, I like chess. It's fun. It's got interesting elements, but like this movie makes you really want to play chess. Like it does a fantastic job of visualizing it and explaining it and giving you stuff to get excited about. So yeah. And I guess,
searching for Bobby Fischer, which was pretty good.
I need to watch that. So now that I'm on a chess kick, maybe that's the next thing I gotta do. Bill dropped off again. I guess he finally did succumb, but he did put his woof in the chat. His woof of the week is Betty. They Say I'm Different, a documentary about Betty Davis, Miles Davis's ex-wife, who is an amazing singer-songwriter and funk pioneer in her own right. And it's free on Tubi and Amazon Prime, so you can't beat that.
That sounds good.
Yeah, and I've seen, I've seen basically a edited version of this that BBC put out not too long ago, and it is, for an artist, he's got a piece of paper. Can't read it though. For an artist that I didn't know anything about, I felt so ashamed that I didn't know her history until I saw this documentary. And again, I didn't see the entire the full documentary. I only saw sort of like a cut version for BBC, but it was fantastic. She is such a fascinating figure, such an amazingly unique musician that was way ahead of her time. And I think she probably doesn't get as much due, at least, in general pop culture and music culture. I don't think she gets as much due as she's bound to should be getting. Obviously, people who are into funk probably know everything about her and are like, and you not know her, but yeah, she's very, very cool. If you have a chance to watch it, I totally recommend it too.
Cool.
So, Bill, are you you're talking by semaphores now?
Smoke signal. And
you'd think by now we could get the internet to work, right? The internet is such a dynamic medium, but I think we're gonna wrap at this point. Michael, it has been a pleasure. I want to before we. Oh, he's gonna hand signal. Okay, before we wrap, before everybody goes off, if you have not subscribed to Characters Welcome, please go on YouTube, punch the subscribe and the bell so you get notified when there's new shit. That's really important. I found out.
Yeah, cool. Thanks for doing that.
Absolutely. And then, of course, for your social media needs, your Hartney Michael on IG, on Instagram, and your Michael Hartney on Twitter.
Yeah, I like to keep it confusing.
There's nothing wrong with that.
I like to really keep as many barriers up to accessibility as possible.
David Toby. Put David Toby's little comment up here.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Oh, God. Semaphores are just straight people trying to vote.
Sure.
And while you're on YouTube, we don't emphasize this as much as I think the algorithm would have us do. But as you can see, Michael's lovely picture is up there on our YouTube channel. So if you enjoyed this, if you're not watching it on YouTube, go over to YouTube and like the video. But also like and subscribe, hit the bell, because again, it's important for the algorithm. And give us some love. We do appreciate it. We've been trying to do more visual stuff like this in quarantine, and it's working out pretty well, other than the internet being a horrible person to us occasionally. Yeah. Oh, poor Bill. And I think, Bill, it's actually like sort of in sync right now. If you dare. If you dare.
Okay, is this okay?
Yeah.
We can hear you.
You can hear me. All right, for 30 seconds, you're probably going to hear me. I don't know, folks. It worked on the Zoom calls. I thought I was in the clear. I'm so, with you coming on, I was so hoping, that everything would go smoothly. But it sounds like you three gentlemen had definitely an enjoyable conversation among yourselves. So I think it all worked out.
No.
You want to take us home, or do you want me to do it?
You.
Oh. So I'm going to screw it up, Bill, every time I do it. But if you like what you're hearing, you can find us on Libsyn. You can find us on all of the streaming platforms for podcasts. Now you can find us on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook. All you got to do is look for Comic Book Bears. It's real easy. We're the only game in town for those 3 words. We're back every Thursday-ish. We might take a break next Thursday. I mean, it's the holidays, right? But please come join us live, 9:30 Eastern, 6:30 Pacific. We love it when you guys interact with us on the chat. These audio things will be great for your little commutes if people are still doing that anymore, because I'm really not. I think most of us aren't. But yeah, Comic Book Bears, please find us. And Michael, again, it was so lovely to talk to you. I'm looking forward.
Fun. Thank you so much for having me, you guys.
I'm looking forward to everything you have in your bright future, and all the great content you're putting out right now. So keep at it, man. It's great.
Thank you.
And I will, I guess, try to do this rap that I never do correctly. Bill's down there, who's mute. I'm Bryan Pittard.
And I'm Steve Morey.
You're going to hear a woof and an explosion, and we'll be back very soon. Thanks for listening, everyone.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.